Are you part of a community? Good morning, my name is Rabbi Yitzwine of Young Israel Aish, and I want to welcome you to Life is Great. Every Sunday morning we get together, we talk about another universal value that is derived from Judaism, and today we will discuss one of the most important and relevant ideas for all of us. Good morning. We are talking about being part of a community. What does it mean to be part of a community? It's such an amazing idea if you think about it. We always talk about it, but how many of us can really say that we are part of a community? On the most basic level, I want to ask you, do you even know your neighbors' names? That's right. I know so few people who even know who they live next door to. Where do we get our community, and why is it so important? Well, just on the most basic level, there's a great story told in the Talmud about a person who is a fellow, his name was Rabbi Asi. Rabbi Asi was near his deathbed, and he's crying, he's sobbing, he's gathered around, people are his students, and his nephew comes to visit him. And says, Uncle Asi, tell me, why are you sad? You learned all the Talmud. You've learned all the Torah, you know everything, you spent your life teaching others, you've helped to give charity and distribute charity to others. And dear uncle, you were so humble, you did not even involve yourself in matters of judgment between man and his fellow man. You stayed out of that because you were so humble. Whereupon Uncle Asi turned and said, that is precisely why I'm crying. I'm worried that when at the end of my life, which is very soon, when I go to heaven, maybe God will ask me if I involved myself enough in other people's lives. See, it's so interesting. We wake up in the morning, take a shower, go to work, kiss our wives, kiss our husbands, come back, watch some TV, go to sleep. People live lives in a bubble. We are very narcissistic. If you look at a baby, babies are all really cute. But babies, what do? They eat and they sleep, and it's all about me, 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 me. And as we grow up, it's always about me, 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 me. We're looking out for number one. But the reality is, true looking out for number one means that I'm number one in a piece of many, many, many others. And that every human being is longing for a sense of being connected and stopping and saying, I'm useful, I'm valuable to other people. And that's ultimately what it means to be part of a community, to be an individual who is deeply connected, whose life is deeply connected with many others. That's what we want to talk about today. I want to talk about how important it is to have a community and how you choose which community you should be part of. And I want to give you a little insight into my community, Young Israel Aish of Las Vegas, and I want to invite you to come and check it out and come and be a little more part of it. So let's begin. Let's start at the very beginning. Why is it so important? When God created man, he created man alone. And then he said, it's not good for man to be alone. Originally, when first man was created in the Garden of Eden, man was supposed to live forever. He was never supposed to die, but after he ate from the forbidden fruit, so then man was kicked out of the garden. And when he was kicked out of the garden, eventually he was told that he would die. So in a certain sense, it is inherent within all of us, a desire to live on forever, a desire to live to be something bigger than ourselves. And we do that in many ways. We have children. In a certain sense, we live on forever through our children. But in another sense, we also put ourselves in a position that we are needed by others, and that others not only need us, but that we can experience the joys and pleasures in life with other people. That is, in part, what it means to be a community member. If you look in the book of Kings, there's a beautiful story told of Elisha the prophet. And Elisha was helped by a particular woman. At the end of their encounter, he turned and said, how can I bless you? What can I do? I am, after all, the greatest prophet in the Jewish people, a little bit of a miracle worker. What can I give you? And she said, Master, just let me be judged with my people. In other words, this very wise woman, and you have to think, how great is a woman who will actually help a prophet, right? So this woman, she understood that her best bet in life would be to be judged with the totality of the Jewish nation. And we have to look at our own lives and recognize that very rarely do we even ask anything specifically for me in Judaism. Usually we ask for we. God, save us. God, help us. That we always want to be judged amongst the totality of the Jewish people. The reason for this is because I don't do all the commandments. You do a commandment, and you do a commandment, and you do a commandment. So when I stand before God, I say, hey, God, judge all of us together because collectively we are great. Collectively we are great. It is an interesting story. If you look into your Bible, you look in the book of Ruth. Ruth is known as the prototype convert to Judaism. Now, the basic story is that Ruth gets married to a boy, and the boy dies, and her father-in-law dies, and her very embittered and sad mother-in-law, Naomi, turns to her daughter-in-law, Ruth, and says, Ruth, I am old, I have no more children, I am by myself, you should go back to the house of your father, find a new husband, and start life anew. And Ruth says the most amazing thing. She turns to her mother-in-law and says, where you go, I shall go. Your people are my people. Your God is my God. What an amazing thing. You know, we might think that Judaism is a religion, isn't it? We might say, wait, you should say, your God is my God, your people is my people. God should come first. Talk about your religious beliefs. But no, your people is my people, your God is my God. Because being part of the community is the thing that will keep our connection with the Almighty and will allow us to grow to become great people. I want to explain for a moment why being part of a community is not just personally beneficial to you. It's not just that connection, but it also is a basic moral obligation. See, I will tell you, the people that say come to Young Israel Aish every single week, what do they hear? What kind of messages do they hear? Well, they hear similar messages that you experience when you watch this television program. But they also hear about how a person should make sure to be a kinder, more charitable, happier, make sure that they refrain from speaking negatively about others, and make sure they spend their time encouraging others. If you think in those terms, being part of a community helps me become a better person and inspires me and infuses me with the desire to make other people's lives better. People that are part of community make the world a better place. That's why it's a moral obligation. So therefore, I want to encourage you to make the effort to join a community. Now, what's really important to know is that a synagogue, a shul, is the bedrock of our community. It's a place where we study, it's a place where we gather, it's a place where we share, it's a place where we go to each other's homes for Shabbos dinner, for the Sabbath dinners and lunches. It's a place where our children grow up together. It's a place where if you're older and you really don't have friends, you can find friends. It's a place where you're younger and you're single, you can find the person you want to get married to. It's a place where you can take your children and your children can be safe. That's what being part of a community is. I had a friend of mine whose father lived in Israel. Every morning his father would go to synagogue. And one day, one Shabbos morning, his father, who was about 84 years old, didn't show up. Well, you know, services start at 9 o'clock, and at about 10:15, the rabbi's looking around. He says, "Gee, where's Mr. Schwartz? I don't see him." Calls two people over, says, "Mr. Schwartz tell you he was going out of town or something?" "No, I didn't say." "You two, leave services now, go to his house. Go see what happened to him. Maybe he's there, maybe something happened." They go over to Mr. Schwartz's house, they bang on the door, no answer, look through the windows, nothing going on. Say, "Listen, you know, the guy shows up every single day. He's not around. He would have told us if he was leaving." They bust in the door, they go in his bedroom, they see Mr. Schwartz lying on the ground. He's laying on the ground. In the middle of the night, he got up, he slipped, he fell down, broke his hip. He was laying unconscious. He was too far away to actually make a phone call to call someone for help. So there he was, laying by himself, unconscious, on the floor. These people, they called an ambulance, took him to the hospital. The doctor said if he had stayed there maybe for another hour or two, he would have passed away. Mr. Schwartz was saved not because he had friends in a synagogue, not because he had a caring or rabbi who noticed who was around or who wasn't around. He was saved because he was part of a community, because people knew where to find him, because he had a consistency in his life. Being part of a community, being part of a shul, part of a place like Young Israel Aish, it only helps your life. It only ensures your safety, your survival, and your growth. I want to share with you a little piece that we produced a couple of years ago. You'll notice my beard is not as gray, but we showed it with you, and it answers a lot of the questions that many of you ask about what is a synagogue, what is a shul, and more closely, what is an orthodox shul? What are some of the rituals that we do, and why do we believe what we believe? So please stick with us for a few more minutes, and I want to share with you a Jewish homecoming, a welcome to Young Israel Aish. You must be the Abrams. I'm Rabbi Wine.
How you doing? My name is Dan. This is Melissa, my wife.
Hi, nice to meet you.
And this is my son, Aaron.
Hey, buddy. How you doing? Welcome to our shul. It's great to have you.
But Dad, I thought we were going to temple.
This is a synagogue. We call it a shul. Shul is a Yiddish word. Means to study. Shul means a school. And in Judaism, it's really all about learning and studying and growing. Before we start, let me give you one of these. We'll keep it there.
Thank you. Why actually do we wear a kippah?
Fantastic question. There's actually two reasons why we do this. One is just to remember that God is above us. Yeah, it could be a baseball cap. Some people call it a yarmulke. And the other reason is, not a lot of people know this one, but it's actually to distinguish us from Western society. Just to kind of like make us a little different. You know, think of the old Westerns when people would walk in and say, well, howdy, ma'am, nice to meet you. What we do is, specifically, we cover our heads as a sign of respect. Okay, so let's go. I'll point you around. One of the things is this little innocuous thing. It's a hand washing station, and many people, first when we wake up in the morning, we wash our hands, and many people before we come in to pray, we also wash our hands. So this reminds us that this is a world of action. It's not about yapping to God, or just yapping to God. It's all about yapping to God, refocusing and saying, hey, look, you know, this is a world of action. My hands are the source of my action, and I'm going to use my hands in order to make the world a better place. Okay? So let's go into the sanctuary, shall we? Come on. Let me show you something. Right in the middle of the shul, you have the bima. This is where we read the Torah from. And Aaron, I want you to just imagine for a second having the Torah scroll open in front here, and you reading from it for your bar mitzvah. Is that cool? Yeah. Nervous already. He's already nervous. Okay, let me just show you a few things. At the front of the sanctuary, a lot of times you're used to seeing the rabbi and the president, and they're sitting up there, and they're like looking down in judgment on their congregation. That's not how it is over here. Actually, I kind of sit in the corner of that table over there. And the reason is that in Orthodox Judaism, a rabbi, the word rabbi means teacher. And he's a leader. So I've had the great privilege to study Torah for a bunch of years. So I sit at the front, but I sit on the same level as everyone else. Because really, we all have an obligation to perfect the world. We all have an obligation to do the commandments. We all have an obligation to study Torah. So I'm just kind of here as a guide, as a resource for you. But I sit down, and we're all kind of together. That's one thing, all right? The next thing is the sanctuary faces always towards Jerusalem. So here, we're faced east. If we were in Moscow, we'd be facing south. If we were in Cape Town, you'd be facing north. Okay, always directing our hearts and our prayers towards Jerusalem. In front of on top of the ark, you see in the blue, that's the Ten Commandments. It's in blue. We put on blue glass because the first commandments that Moses brought down the mountain, they were actually made out of sapphire. Okay, on top is that kind of burning bush thing going on. That's our Ner Tamid. So Ner Tamid is a light that stays on all of the time. Remember that, and also again, it helps to remember the Almighty. The Almighty's presence is always there. There's never a time when God's light, God forbid, is snuffed out of this world. It's always in existence. Of course, inside there, that's the Ark, and the Ark, that's where we hold our holy Torah scrolls. Down on the ground, the same level as everyone else. That's where most of the services are led. The idea is that we call out to the Almighty from our depths. Okay, that's the depths of our heart. Hey, come on, let me show you where I speak from on Shabbos and actually during the week as well. I stand right here, and this way I can see all the men and all the women, and everyone can see me, right? So everyone's got a clear shot.
So the women sit behind that curtain?
When a person comes to shul, one of the main things they're trying to accomplish is just that spiritual moment, that moment where it's them and the Almighty. And we know that if a guy has the option of thinking about a God that is invisible or a really pretty lady, he's probably always going to choose the pretty lady. So in prayer, inside of a shul, we try and minimize distractions as much as possible, just for that time. When people talk about Young Israel Aish being their extended family, it's not just talk. It's about action. It's real. A family is a group of people who are with you in good times and bad times. They're with you no matter what life brings. Sometimes a person is single, but through our programs, God willing, Jewish singles become Jewish couples. And as we dance at the wedding, it's not just a mazel tov, a joyous occasion for that one family, it's really for the entire community. When we go to a Jewish wedding, we're not just going for the food, we are going to fulfill the commandment to be mesameach, chasen v'kala, to cause rejoicing for the bride and the groom. After the wedding, oftentimes, thank God, people have babies. Well, we do baby namings and brisses. People grow up. We facilitate bar mitzvahs and bat mitzvahs. And no matter what life brings, not all of life is dancing. Sometimes people get sick. They need to be visited in the hospital. People are homebound. They need acts of kindnesses to elevate them and inspire them. Our family is there to help. That's what a community is. And yes, even to provide comfort to mourners who have lost a loved one. That's our shul. Hey, so this is one of our playrooms. So during Shabbos services, when we are all in doing, we're learning and praying and doing all that stuff. So the kids, they come here, sit around, they sing, they schmooze, they have snacks. And there's always a leader, so they learn something. It's not just babysitting, but they actually learn something about Judaism as well. And this is for the younger kids. Next door, there's one for the older kids. We do 2 programs concurrently, and it works out fantastic. So they have a great time. Maybe what we'll do is let's go back to my office, and we can schmooze more. Well, if any questions you have, we can talk about
Sounds good.
Okay.
Hey, Rabbi, is it okay if I go ahead and play some basketball?
Sure, make yourself at home. Go right ahead.
Okay, thanks.
Okay, come on, folks.
We have facilities for the older kids. We have a great basketball court outside. We have great fields. We have sports going on during the day. On Shabbos, we have little learning activities, little learning groups for the older kids, which we have snacks. So really, it enhances the desire for kids to come to shul. Maybe in other communities, kids will want to come to shul because, it's boring. I'm sitting around. I don't really know what's going on so much. But over here, you know that if you come, even if you have no idea what's going on, you're going to have fun because you make friends with the kids there naturally because you're hanging out with them every week. Great opportunity to have fun, to play sports, to go outside, and you learn a little bit. And our teachers who work with the kids are great.
Okay, so we've had the tour, and what do you think? Do you have any questions, any thoughts?
Rabbi, we're not very religious.
Neither am I. It's okay.
So are we being hypocrites in joining an orthodox shul?
No. See, a hypocrite is someone who portrays themselves as one thing and really is something else. But that's not you. And that's not the people in the shul either. Sometimes you meet a person who's very observant. They're on a very high level of observance. But at the same time, their attitude in life is, you know what I know. This is what I do. I am who I am. Leave me alone. There's that person. On the other hand, there's another person who is not very knowledgeable, not very observant, but they want to know, they want to grow. The second person, that is the person that will really find the most fulfillment through their Judaism. And that's really what we encourage over here, to just, wherever you are, just learn a little more, grow a little more at your pace. That's what we're trying to do. So, no, you're not a hypocrite.
You know, Rabbi, this seems great, but it just seems like there's a lot of stuff we have to do, and maybe it's like too much for us at this stage in our life, and maybe it's just like all or nothing.
When your son, Aaron, was starting to walk, did you insist that immediately he was able to make the team in the 100 meters?
No.
Of course not, right? And so as our children grow, we have to remember they start off crawling. First they roll, then they crawl, then they stand up, they fall down, we clap. So you have to remember that's the same with the Almighty. In other words, as we take every step is better. 5 minutes of shul is better than no minutes. Every little thing we do is precious in the Almighty's eyes, and that's how a person grows. So it's not all or nothing, you know. It's like there's so many commandments, 613 commandments, and each one is precious in and of itself.
So, Rabbi, why do we have 613 commandments? It seems like a whole lot.
That's right. It is a lot of commandments. The point of every commandment, it's a principle for attaining pleasure in this world. You have to remember that just as all we want for our children is only the best, that's what the Almighty wants for us too. We just want our children to have pleasure. That's what God wants from us as well. And every commandment, we view it as is a principle for attaining pleasure. No one does all of the commandments. No one. I mean, some of them can only be done when the majority of the Jewish people are living in the land of Israel. Some of them are situational commandments, like, for example, if you're going to get divorced, have to do it in a certain way. If you're not getting divorced, you never fulfill that commandment. Some of them are only for the Kohanim, right, a certain family within the Jewish people. But we have to remember that the reason God gave us a Torah is as instructions for living. It's to help us get the most out of life. So we view every commandment as a principle for attaining pleasure in this world and the next world as well. So that's what a commandment is. God's saying here's your opportunity. I'm teaching you how to be a good person, how to fulfill your potential, how to make this world the absolute best world it can possibly be. And there's 613 avenues. It's different opportunities and instructions to teach us how to be better people. Now, I want you to know, at Young Israel Aish, it's not just about davening and learning, but rather one of the most special times of the entire week is the Shabbos morning right after services for the Kiddush. This happens every Saturday at around noonish. People get together, we eat, we schmooze, we visit, we eat a little more, we do a l'chaim, eat a little more. Sometimes it's a full lunch, sometimes it's a little less. But this is a time when in a non-judgmental, relaxed environment, we get together and spend time with our friends and family. And it's really the time when we develop into a community. You know, sometimes people say, Rabbi, I'm not so into the davening. The learning isn't really my style. And I always respond, yeah, but you eat, right? Well, if you eat and you enjoy spending time with friends and bonding, becoming part of a community, then Shabbos Kiddush is the best. It's one of the easiest ways just to celebrate Shabbos. You show up, 5 minutes is better than no minutes. You show up, spend time with your friends, spend time with your family, have a l'chaim, and enjoy.
Aaron, what's up?
All right, hey, okay, so here's your welcome packet.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. Oh, look, it's wifey.
Hi.
It's my wife, Helene.
Hey,
and this
how
is
are you?
Aaron's family.
Hi, Melissa. So great to meet you.
Nice to meet you.
Hi.
All right, great. So anyways, the neighbors, they just moved to town. Gave them a tour of the shul. We've been schmoozing about things. It's been nice.
It would be great if you could come for Shabbos dinner.
Oh, you know,
you.
thank you so much. We would love to, but we kind of live pretty far away.
You know what? I'll never say it's okay to drive on Shabbos. However, as we discussed before, there's so many aspects about keeping Shabbos. The last one you should take on yourself is to stop driving on Shabbos. There's so many other things to do before that. Because, look, the truth is, a person has to be part of the community. First come, meet friends, learn, study, and as you develop, so then it'll be great. You know, sometimes a person has to drive in order to walk, you know? That's true. Okay. But thank you. So next Shabbos, we'll see you. It'll be great.
Okay, sounds good. Here you go.
Keep the kippah. You never know when you need it. You never know when you need it. So.
Okay.
I like your
Sounds good.
All right. It's a pleasure. Okay,
Great meeting you.
Wonderful.
Thank you for the
Okay,
wonderful
arm,
tour.
buddy.
Nice to meet you.
Nice
There we
to
go.
meet you.
Okay, good. Why do we do these things? What's the point of it? So does it make sense that
How does it add value to my life? Why is it important? Why did this tradition start? If you have some of those questions, if you think your life would be fuller with answers to some of those questions, then you're probably the kind of person that would get value from attending Young Israel.
When my son was born, everyone just chimed in, and we had all this food coming to our house, and people were cooking all this amazing stuff for us. And as a matter of fact, we had too much food and we couldn't eat it all. We had to invite people over to come and eat the food. So we were just showered on with love and food, and it was such a pleasure, just to be able to focus on my family, my wife, and the baby, and not have to worry about going out to make food and all this stuff.
I've been lucky enough to have found a good number of friends, gotten really involved in the synagogue. It's a very warm and friendly group of people. They make you feel like you're almost like family. And quite often when Shelley and I travel, I have actually come back and said, I've missed my family.
Especially Helene, she's very generous. She's always inviting people to come for her Shabbat dinners, and of course she's the best cook. So most people enjoy that immensely, but they're very generous people. And that's something special to bring to a synagogue, is when you're invited to the rabbi's home for a Shabbat meal, it makes you feel even that much more special.
Thank you so much for enjoying this brief tour of Young Israel Aish of Las Vegas. I want to invite you to enrich your life and the lives of those whom you love by calling me, Rabbi Wine, at Young Israel Aish Las Vegas, 702-360-8909, or logging on to our website, sending me an email, so that we can help find the perfect program or class for you and your family. Judaism is so beautiful. It's such a great asset. The rabbis tell a story of one time there was a kind-hearted soul who saw a poor man and wanted to help him anonymously. So he took a bag of gold coins and placed it at the bottom of the poor man's shopping cart. It took a few weeks for that poor man to actually find the treasure. And when he did, he was so excited and so enthused, he didn't quite know what to do with it until he figured out, oh my goodness, I should get something to eat, I should buy some new clothes, I should get a place to stay, and his life was enriched and enhanced in a great way. Well, in a certain sense, we are a little bit like that poor man. Many of us don't realize the greatest gift that the Almighty's given us. We have the Torah, we have the fact that we're Jewish. And even those of us who really realize it, so often we don't know how to take advantage of this incredible gift, to get the most out of it. So again, I would just like to invite you. You don't have to be super religious. You don't have to write big checks. You just have to want to get the most out of life. The Torah teaches us that God created us for the ultimate pleasure, and that the Torah is the guide for receiving that pleasure. And why accept half a loaf if you can have the whole loaf? We want the most for our children, and the Almighty wants the most for us. And that's what Young Israel Aish is all about, helping all of us get the most out of our lives.
Want more wine? Turn your radio to AM 720 KDWN, or go online to therabbishow.com to hear The Rabbi Show starting right after the news at 9 a.m.